Thank you, Alex, for volunteering. So we're going to be talking a little bit about how his experience is living in America. He has lived abroad for many years, not only in America, but also in Europe. We'll see how, his life has been impacted by cultures in the West. So when you got to the Western world, what was the culture shock for you?
I haven't really experienced this, what people call cultural shock, because of the experience of my mom, because she was very open about, her experience living there. She would tell a lot of stories, what she experienced while living in Europe. So I heard so many things, so many stories that I had a pretty good idea of what it would be like going into Europe. So,
what about in terms of transitioning from one weather to another one? I know it's different in Europe. The winter could be brutal.
Yes.
What about transitioning from Ethiopian daily injera to European food? Tell us a little bit.
I have no problem at all with food, as you know. The one thing I remember eating pork is, it's very common. And coming from Ethiopia, I wasn't used to eating pork. So I remember when I was in Austria, my mom would cook something with pork in it.
Yeah.
And I would ask, I'm always curious, and I would be like, hey, what's this, what's that? And she'd be like, this is pork. I'm like, no, I'm not eating that. She would get mad at me, you should eat, and so we had a little, but she did something interesting. Like one time she cooked, and it has some pork in it, but she didn't tell me because I didn't ask. And then I ate. I liked it, and then I liked it a lot. That she was like, you said you don't like pork anymore, and I was like, this is pork.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that's how I was like, okay, I guess it's not that bad after all, So that was, as far as food is concerned, pork was the only issue I had, and then I kind of got used to it. Whether I really I'm from Addis, so the humidity was a major issue for me when I was in Europe and still here in the US. But at least over here, if you are indoors, there is AC and stuff. But over there are a lot of old buildings, and they only have heaters. They don't have, really AC. So the summer was really not fun. So I remember the humidity being bad, having issues with that. I remember that. As far as the time difference, which I still find it interesting, the 12 hours of the day, back when we have a different time frame, right?
Yeah.
So when we say a day, it's 12 hours, and you see the sun, and when those 12 hours are over, the sun goes out, and then we start, saying, another 12 hours, right, for the night. But here, 8 p.m. in the evening or 9 p.m. in the evening, you might see the sun. And that was a huge, I was like, what time is it again?
That happened to me
The
too.
first experience is I could not believe that it would be, 8 o'clock in the evening and still the sun would be shining. That was very hard to get used to.
Yeah. And So we all have some stereotypes or some kind of perception before we move to another location. Before you came to America, what was one thing, or at least two things, that you thought in your head that America is like this, or Americans are like this, and you came here and you found it that was just a perception you had, it was wrong?
Right, yeah. So the one thing, for example, guns, right? Fun topic. Like, and shooting and that. I thought, like, all over you go in the US, like, people will be shooting each other and stuff, you know? Like, you know, just like you see in the action movies and stuff.
What is one thing you wish foreigners or Americans or Austrian, anybody, they knew about Ethiopia?
Oh, I think how diverse we are. We have so many different, you know, cultures, language, all of that, and yet we are so much interdependent on each other. We don't always realize that, but that's the case. Like, rarely you would find an Ethiopian who doesn't cross, like, you know, whether religious or ethnic or whatever, who doesn't have a family member that's different from the immediate parents or something like that, you know? So that experience, I wish people knew about Ethiopia, the relationship Muslims and Christians have in Ethiopia. In general, you know, people are very tolerant, you know, Christians and Muslims.
Yeah.
The harmony we have in Ethiopia, I mean, this is just the religious aspect, but it's so much, like, within one family, you know, you could have so many different cultures, different religions, you know what I mean? Different shades of skin color, you know what I mean? So, I mean, we don't always appreciate that, but I think that's one of the best or the beauty of Ethiopia.
And for example, coming here, I know it has been a while for you,
Right.
but have you come across an American who had a stereotype about Ethiopia? Or like who had a wrong perception?
Yeah, I mean, that's
Tell us.
very,
One.
that's very common. Like, oftentimes, like, in the media, people tend to paint very, you know, dark image of Ethiopia, you know, famine, starvation, blah, blah. I mean, that's still, you know, an issue, but that's not all Ethiopia is, you know. So, you know, you might, you know, meet somebody, you know, ignorant person who would, who could, you know, ask you, hey, do you guys have planes and stuff, you know? How do you came? I came here. How do you think I came here? You know, I definitely didn't walk here. You know, I remember, like, when I was in Europe, a friend of my mom's, somebody like that was in Austria, not in the US. I think an Austrian person asked my mom's friend, "Hey, did you guys have really nice houses back there?" And she was like, "Nope, we're all living on trees." You know, I don't think she got the sarcasm there, but yeah, I mean, you know, once in a while you come across, you know, ignorant people, but we all cultures, all countries have ignorant people, right?
What's my last question, what's one culture that cannot be translated, or that doesn't have an equivalent culture in America, which is an Ethiopian culture? Or, and then the vice versa too, an American culture that doesn't have an equivalent culture. It could be a language expression or whatever. Both ways. That's my last question.
I'm gonna pick an example that's related to food. surprise. I think, eating from the same plate, I don't think is very common, or I don't think it's a thing in the US. Like,
I don't think I've seen it either.
So that's very common in Ethiopia. Like, a whole family would circle around one plate and eat. That's very Ethiopian thing. You eat together, you actually feed other people, as a show of affection. So that eating culture is very Ethiopian. People might consider this political, but it's not just for Ethiopia, but since we're comparing Ethiopia and the US, the relationship people like a lot of Americans, not everyone, have with their guns is so interesting, to say the least. I don't think we would ever have that kind of relationship with guns. People are very emotional about it. So, like a lot of people, not everyone, very attached to their guns. That is very unique to the U.S. I've been to in Europe. There are a lot of countries who have gun owners and stuff, but it's very unique to the U.S. where the relationship is so in a lot of areas in the U.S. Definitely not all over the U.S., but this unique, you see a billboard saying gun shows. I don't think I would see that kind of billboards in Ethiopia. You know what I mean? Like, what part of gun is considered a show? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's me. For others, it's fun sports. You know what I mean? Yeah. But that I don't think you could find the gun culture that the U.S. has in Ethiopia.
All right. So finally, if you have anything else to say?
Yeah, so about what's going on right now, I think there is something, like I've seen, even living in Europe, I've seen so many videos of police brutality against black men. But after I came here, it never stops, and then I try to educate myself about the story of the struggle and the stories of African Americans in this country. And we have seen so many protests, so many videos of police violence against black people in this country. Something about what happened to George Floyd, I think, is different. People are realizing, justice is not really for all in this country. So I think that's beginning to change, and that's good. So hopefully everyone now realizes Black Lives Matter.
Thank you so much again. Maybe in the future we'll talk again, and you will share us more experience that you had in the Western culture.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. No more handshake.
Yes.
Namaste.
Stay safe.
Thank you.